Hope the new guy makes you as happy as I made myself. I took what I was owed. You'll survive, like always. That message popped up on my lock screen at exactly 2:46 a.m., right as I was scrubbing blood off my forearms in the hospital sink, still wearing the same pair of scrubs I'd been in for almost 20 hours. The fluorescent lights of the trauma bay flickered slightly overhead. I remember thinking, please let that be a joke. But then I saw the photo, and the smile on his face told me it wasn't. My husband, Jasper Quinn, stood in front of a brand new matte black Mercedes G-Wagon, grinning like a lottery winner. One arm draped casually around a woman in pale yoga pants and a messy blonde bun, someone I'd never seen in my life but who looked like she belonged on a juice cleanse retreat in Sedona. In the background, a clean white modern farmhouse with black trim. My dream style. A house I'd never laid eyes on. But somehow my name was still on that front porch. In his other hand, a champagne flute, tilted just enough to catch the flash of the camera. I stared at that photo while the automatic faucet ran uselessly beside me, the water going cold. My gloves still hung from my wrist. I hadn't even taken off my surgical mask yet. And suddenly the sounds of the ER, monitors beeping, doors swinging, nurses shouting down hallways, just fell away. The rest of the world stopped. 'Cause I realized that house, that car, that woman, were all paid for with my money. My name is Sloan Everett, and I'm a 36-year-old trauma surgeon based in New Orleans. I've performed emergency thoracotomies on accident victims, closed open abdomens in military field tents, and once restarted a man's heart with nothing but my bare hands and a cracked rib spreader. But nothing prepared me for the moment I realized the man I loved had emptied out our entire future while I was halfway across the world, saving lives. 6 months ago, I joined a hybrid deployment with Doctors Without Borders and a stateside trauma center in Louisiana. The idea was simple: help where help was most needed, rotate between high-intensity zones, and come home with enough saved to buy the lake house we'd spent years talking about. Our little corner of peace in Asheville, North Carolina. Jasper and I had even made a Pinterest board for it. He wanted something modern but cozy, and I'd always dreamed of a wraparound porch, something warm and wide where I could drink coffee in the mornings and finally breathe. Through 15 years of residency, fellowships, and sleepless nights filled with death and blood and beeping machines, I was ready for quiet. Or at least I thought I was. We had a plan. A real plan. Every month, I transferred $4,500 into our joint savings account, marked Everett Future Home. It was an inside joke. We weren't building just a house. We were building a future. Or so I believed. That night, after receiving the photo, I walked quietly into the empty stairwell of the hospital and sat on the concrete steps, my phone still clutched in one gloved hand. I scrolled further down the message thread. More photos. Jasper and her, whoever she was, having dinner at Commander's Palace. I hadn't eaten there in over a year. It's the kind of place you book 2 months out and wear tailored clothes to. Jasper hated places like that. Another photo. Jasper on a boat, aviators on, bottle of wine in hand. Caption read, "Freedom tastes expensive." I stared at that for a long time. Freedom. Expensive. My money. His freedom. He knew I wouldn't be able to stop him, not quickly anyway. I was thousands of miles away. In a different country. On a brutal schedule. Too exhausted most nights to even brush my teeth before collapsing. But apparently I had enough energy to fund his lifestyle. The more I scrolled, the worse it got. Shopping sprees at places I couldn't pronounce. Jewelry. Wine. Car dealerships. And then, closing photo. Him and the woman holding a small gold key in front of that gleaming White House. My house. Our house. Except, I'd never seen it before. There was one last message from him. By the way, don't bother freezing the account. Moved it all weeks ago. I finally did something smart, huh? I stared at that line until the screen went dark. He'd always had a way of flipping the script. of sounding casual even while setting everything on fire. He wasn't the villain. He was the guy finding himself struggling with pressure, trying to be something more. And I was always the one holding it all together. That moment, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. My hands were steadier than they had any right to be. Because what I felt wasn't sadness. It wasn't betrayal. It was something colder, sharper. And I knew one thing with perfect clarity. He thought he'd won. He thought I was too far, too tired, too trusting. But what he didn't know was that earlier that week, I'd received an email from our bank. Unusual access activity detected. Please verify your identity to proceed with security checks. The time I brushed it off. I was in the middle of prepping a mass casualty intake and thought it was just some glitch or spam. But now it all snapped into place. And the pieces looked very much like a crime. I stood up, still in my surgical scrubs, and walked slowly toward the administrative wing. The halls were quiet, emergency quiet. The kind of stillness that feels like something's about to break. I reached for my secure phone, opened my encrypted contacts, and dialed one of the few people who knew exactly what to do when everything falls apart. 'Cause Jasper didn't just drain a bank account. He forged signatures, lied to institutions, and committed what I was rapidly realizing was federal fraud. He thought I'd be too busy saving other people to save myself. But starting that night, he'd learn exactly who I was when I wasn't holding back. The next morning, I didn't report to the OR. I called in compassionate leave for the first time in my entire career. The woman on the admin line sounded surprised. Sloan Everett? Are you okay? I wasn't. But I said I was. 'Cause I didn't have time to explain that my entire life had just been stolen from under me, and now I needed to switch from saving lives to saving my own. I spent the next 2 hours combing through every digital receipt, transaction history, and tax document I could find. And what I saw made my stomach twist into something hard and cold. Over the last 5 months, Jasper had transferred more than $83,000 out of our joint account, then 2 credit cards in both our names, claimed an LLC under the name Everett Creative Holdings, and made real estate inquiries in multiple states, including one where we didn't even have residency. He hadn't just taken the money. He'd built an entire paper identity around my income. He used my W-2s, my deployment verification letter, my military-affiliated travel insurance. He'd claimed I was working abroad on a private medical contract, and worst of all, he forged a power of attorney with my name on it. I stared at the scanned documents in disbelief. The signature looked like mine. Almost. But not quite. By 9 a.m., I was standing in the hallway of a beige office suite in uptown New Orleans with a folder of printed evidence in one hand and a cold knot in my stomach. The brass plate on the door read, Captain Imani Calloway, Jacor Legal Affairs, Reserve. She wasn't my official military counsel, but she worked part-time with deployed physicians like me, handling legal questions, family protections, and all the mess in between. I knocked once. Firm. Come in, a voice called. Captain Calloway stood as I entered. Mid-40s, afro pulled back into a tight bun, expression razor-sharp. Her office smelled like burned coffee and quiet judgment. You're early, she said, motioning for me to sit. That usually means something's on fire. I sat. Wordlessly handed her the folder. She opened it. 1 page in, her brows lifted. 3 pages in, her pen was moving. By the time she hit the forged power of attorney document, she stopped cold. This your signature? She asked. No. You sure? Positive. I was in Honduras on that date, parading on a boy who got caught in a machete riot. I have the OR logs. Her eyes flicked to mine. Okay. Then we've got something. She paged through the account transfers again. You said he used these funds to purchase a home? Allegedly. He sent me pictures of it. With his new partner. Of course he did, she muttered, picking up her phone. I'm calling an old friend in financial crimes. He's ex-military. He's seen this before. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask. But I saw something shift in her tone, something hard and personal. 15 minutes later, a man stepped into the room without knocking. Staff Sergeant Gabriel Ayres looked like someone who'd served in war zones, then came home to take down cowards with clipboards. Barrel-chested, thick-knuckled, eyes sharp behind silver-rimmed glasses. Dr. Everett, he said, nodding. I've read your file. Sorry to meet under these circumstances. Likewise. He spread out the documents on the desk. This is what we call a paper crime trail, he said. But your husband wasn't smart enough to hide his tracks. Forged power of attorney, fraudulent business registration, identity misuse. He left breadcrumbs all over the place. Captain Calloway folded her arms. What do we need to freeze the damage? First, we contact the bank. Freeze every account he touched. Then we notify the Office of Service Members Civil Relief. Under federal law, he wasn't even allowed to access those funds without your direct, verified consent. But he had my login, my password. That's on me. No, it's not, Ayres said, voice tightening. He used your deployment as cover. That's fraud. Wire fraud, identity fraud, military financial abuse. And if he signed any mortgage papers with your name on them, we're talking about federal prison. I blinked. Sounded so clinical, so detached. Federal prison. It didn't feel real. Not yet. Ayres opened his laptop and started typing. I've already issued an emergency freeze with the National Title Registry. If the house sale isn't finalized yet, we can stop it. If it is, we'll go after the escrow. Either way, the money doesn't vanish. Not yet. Can I recover it? I asked, barely above a whisper. Ayres paused. Looked up. You can do better than that. You can expose him, get restitution, and stop him from doing this to someone else. Captain Calloway nodded. We see this more than we'd like. Deployed professionals, especially women, are prime targets for this kind of abuse. Distance, trust, emotional manipulation. It's a playbook. And you're not the first page. I sat back in the chair, hands clasped tightly. I'd come in expecting to fight for my own survival. Now I was realizing I might not be the only one. Then let's start turning pages, I said. Calloway smiled for the first time. Good. Because we're about to tear his little empire apart. By that afternoon, I was sitting in a windowless office inside the federal building on Poydras Street. Across the table from me were Captain Calloway and Staff Sergeant Ayres, and now another new face. Detective Ava Marin, Financial Crimes Division, former IRS forensic analyst turned federal investigator. She wore a blazer that didn't quite hide the Glock on her hip and spoke with the calm precision of someone who'd seen 100 cases just like mine, each one worse than the last. On the table between us, 4 folders thick with statements and screenshots. A forensic accounting laptop already running matching algorithms. And 1 legal pad titled Operation Everett Recovery written in bold Sharpie. I wanted to laugh. Foration. As if this was a mission. As if my life hadn't just been stolen in the form of a modern farmhouse with black window frames. Ava pushed the first folder toward me. This is everything we've been able to verify so far. Your husband's name is on the house offer, yes. But the down payment came directly from the joint account where you deposited $4,500 every month. The bank marked the transfer as client-initiated, but the IP address traces back to a device in Austin, Texas. I stared at the paper, my stomach dropping. We didn't even live in Austin. We lived in Lafayette. Why would he be in Austin? Calloway flipped to another page. He registered his business address there. Everett Creative Holdings, LLC registered to a P.O. Box, Tax classification, S Corp, purpose listed as consulting and brand development. I scoffed. He can barely use Excel. Ava smiled grimly. That's where it gets worse. She pulled out a set of real estate forms, closing disclosures, mortgage pre-approvals, income statements. All of them bore my name, my social security number, my forged signature. He used your deployment to pose as an unavailable co-signer, Ava said, tapping the signature line with her pen. He claimed he had power of attorney on your behalf. And he fabricated income documentation showing you earning over $280,000 from two sources, Tulane Medical and the LLC he registered. But I didn't approve any of that. I didn't even know about the LLC until yesterday. Exactly. That makes everything in here a federal offense, Ayers said, his tone cold and flat. Wire fraud, identity theft, false statements on mortgage documents, unauthorized use of protected military income. It's a stack of charges waiting to happen. I sat back, feeling like the floor beneath me had quietly dissolved. How long had he been planning this? How long had he smiled at me across the dinner table while quietly turning me into his golden goose? Then Ava opened her laptop. Here's where it gets really interesting. She projected a screen onto the wall behind her. It showed a long spreadsheet of transaction histories, highlighted in red. These are all flagged withdrawals from your joint account cross-referenced with merchant data. Notice the pattern. There were dozens of charges. $275 at a jewelry store in Houston. $3,400 wire to a car dealership. $599 subscription to a luxury wine club. Hotel bookings in Miami, Los Angeles, Aspen. A $6,000 boutique clothing charge labeled Tiff Styling Experience. I froze. Tiff. Based on text records we've subpoenaed from his phone, that's what he calls her. Tiffany. Last name unclear. But she used that account for purchases regularly. Ayers stepped in. This wasn't a weekend affair. This was a coordinated financial extraction. A long game. I flipped through the spreadsheet, my throat tightening. $500 here. $800 there. Teddy. Quiet. Like water leaking through a pipe. I thought we were saving for a house, I said softly. You were, Ava said. He was using you to buy it. But not with you. Then she pulled out another folder. Thicker. Darker. This one smelled of toner and stress. Here are the messages. I blinked. Messages. Between him and the mortgage broker. Between him and Tiffany. Between him and a friend named Caleb, who, by the way, helped him mock up the fake power of attorney form. Calloway opened to the first transcript. She's never going to check any of this. She's in Honduras doing surgery on kids or whatever. They practically live off-grid. I felt a flash of white-hot rage slice through my spine. Another message, forwarded from Jasper to Tiffany. The best part of being married to a surgeon? The money just shows up. Calloway circled a note at the bottom. He told the broker you'd be home by November. He needed to make it seem like you were involved in the decision to purchase. He even signed a letter saying you were virtually touring properties. He made it sound like we were buying this together, I said, my voice breaking at the edges. That's the con, Ava said gently. And it worked. Until now. For a moment, no one said anything. The air in the room felt heavy. Like we were waiting for a bomb to go off that had already exploded. Then Ayers spoke, voice steady. He underestimated you. Most of them do, Calloway added. They think distance means weakness. But the thing about deployed women, especially in high-stakes professions, is that once they realize what's happening, they don't fold. Ava nodded. They fight. I stared at the wall. The numbers. At the digital evidence of a life I no longer recognized. It was all there. in plain sight. Every betrayal, every lie, every stolen dollar. And suddenly I didn't feel broken. I felt armed. "What's the next step?" I asked. Calloway's smile was small but fierce. "We go to war." At exactly 6 a.m. the next morning, I was back in the federal building, this time with coffee in hand and purpose running through every nerve in my body. The war had begun. Detective Ava Marin had already gotten an emergency order from a judge to initiate full financial account freezes tied to my Social Security number. That meant every checking account, credit card, investment platform, and registered LLC under the Everett name, legitimate or not, had been flagged and halted. "We just cut off his oxygen supply," Ava said, typing furiously on her laptop. "Now we wait to see how loud he gasps." She wasn't being dramatic. Because the house Jasper had just bought? It wasn't closed yet. The final signing was scheduled for 10 a.m. 3 days from now at a real estate law office in Austin, Texas. Until that moment, the money still sat in escrow. Untouched. Waiting. Vulnerable. Ava had filed a motion under the Service Members Civil Relief Act, SCRA, a law most civilians forget exists until it steamrolls their fraudulent little schemes. That motion? It would freeze the transaction until a full investigation could be completed, which meant Jasper and Tiffany weren't about to walk away with their dream house. They were about to walk into a legal ambush. While Ava worked on the banking side, Ayers was deep in phone calls with the Office of Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, coordinating their next move. "The key is the timing," he said. "We don't alert him until the moment he's locked in. We want him showing up to that office thinking the money's already his." Calloway nodded. "Let him think he won." That's when people make mistakes. I watched them, feeling a strange mix of adrenaline and detachment. I'd been in operating rooms where lives were on the line, where minutes determined outcomes. But this was surgical in a completely different way. And the target was the man who once kissed me on the forehead and told me he was proud to be married to a hero. That afternoon, Ava received a call from the escrow company. "They're stalling," she said after hanging up. The title office in Austin just received a concerned party inquiry, which means someone tried to speed up the closing ahead of schedule. I blinked. "You think that was him?" "Almost certainly. He may have gotten wind of the freeze request from his mortgage officer. They're required to notify parties when government holds are pending." "But I thought we weren't on record yet." "We weren't," Ava said, eyes narrowing. "Unless..." She tapped a few keys on her laptop, her fingers flying. "Unless he saw the balance disappear from the LLC account. We froze it 90 minutes ago. He probably tried to use the card and got declined." She turned the screen toward me. "Here. Look at this." It was a time-stamped fraud alert from Amex Business Platinum. Declined $2,780 at Versace, Austin, Texas, 12:04 p.m. I stared at it. "He was shopping?" Ayers snorted. "They always are." 4:17 p.m. my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a moment before answering. His voice hit me like a cold wind. "Sloan, what the hell did you do?" I didn't say anything. "The accounts are frozen. The realtor said there's a federal hold. This is your fault." I almost laughed. "My fault? You mean for noticing that you forged my name and stole almost $100,000 of my money?" He scoffed. "It wasn't like that. I borrowed it. I was gonna tell you. I just needed to make a move before we missed the market. You forged my signature, Jasper. You left me. You disappeared to go play war doctor across the world, and I was just here, trying to keep our life afloat." "Our life," I hissed. "Or yours with her?" Silence. Then, "You don't understand what it's like to be in your shadow all the time. You're always the one with the applause and the mission and the noble cause. I just wanted something that was mine. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Sharp. Cold. You wanted something that was yours? Then why did you use my money to buy it? Click. He hung up. By the time I got back to Calloway's office, the room was buzzing. Rodriguez, one of Air's contacts from Military Financial Crime Enforcement, was patched into a call on speaker. We've confirmed the forged POA and income statements, he was saying. Mortgage officers giving us access to the original applications. His girlfriend co-signed on several documents claiming she knew Dr. Everett personally and was assisting her virtually with the process. Assist me? I repeated. I don't even know her name. Exactly, Rodriguez said. Which makes it conspiracy. Ava turned from her laptop. We're almost ready for the final phase. The house closing is still on the books for 10 a.m. Thursday morning. We're coordinating with agents in Austin to intercept at the title office. I swallowed hard. Intercept? Ayers grinned. They'll walk in thinking they're closing on a dream home. And instead, they'll be greeted by 2 federal agents and a fraud investigator holding a warrant. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, calculating time zones. He thought I was too far to see. Too tired to act. Too loyal to fight. But what he didn't understand is that I've trained my entire life to make impossible decisions under pressure. He thought he was stealing my future. What he really did was give me the clearest mission I'd ever had. Thursday morning, 4:58 a.m. I sat in the comms room of the Federal Operations Hub, fingers clenched around a paper coffee cup that had gone cold hours ago. I hadn't slept, hadn't even showered. I just sat, watching the clock, waiting. 10 a.m. Central Time, the scheduled closing for the house Jasper and Tiffany had bought with my money. It was 4,000 miles away from where I sat. But I needed to be in the moment when it happened. I needed to feel it. Every second. Ava entered the room quietly. She handed me a secure tablet and sat down beside me, her face serious. They've arrived, she said. Team's in position. They just walked into the title company office. On the screen, I saw a grainy feed from a ceiling-mounted security camera in a white-walled conference room. There he was, Jasper, wearing a blazer, dress shirt open just enough to be casual, hair slicked back with the confidence of a man who believed he was untouchable. And beside him, Tiffany, high ponytail, oversized sunglasses pushed on top of her head like a crown, stilettos clicking as she strutted into the room like it was her personal photo shoot. They sat down at the table, all smiles and swagger, chatting with the escrow agent. I watched as Jasper leaned back in his chair, one arm draped around Tiffany, the other resting on a manila folder containing what he believed were his final documents. I could almost hear his voice in my head. Simple. Clean. Done deal. Then the door opened again. 2 federal agents stepped into the room. They weren't wearing uniforms. Just dark suits and unreadable expressions. The room changed instantly. Jasper sat up straighter. Tiffany froze mid-sip from a disposable latte. The agent on the left reached into his jacket and pulled out a badge. I leaned in closer to the screen. The audio was patched in now. Mr. Quinn, we need to speak with you regarding a matter of federal concern. Please remain seated. Jasper's smile faltered. What's this about? About the fraudulent use of a service member's financial identity, forged documents, and illegal access to protected funds. His eyes darted to Tiffany, then back to the agent. Wait, no, hold on, there's been some kind of mistake. My wife gave me full permission. She's deployed. I had power of attorney. The female agent stepped forward, placing a folder on the table. No, Mr. Quinn. You had a forged document. One you created using a downloadable PDF template and a copied signature from a prior tax return. I saw the color drain from his face. Tiffany began to shift in her seat, her lips parting. I didn't forge anything, Jasper stammered. She gave me verbal consent over the phone. The mail agent opened the folder and flipped to a printout. Then perhaps you'd like to explain this message you sent 2 weeks ago. Don't worry, she's in Honduras doing God knows what. I've got access to everything I need. Tiffany's latte hit the table with a dull thud. I watched the entire room unravel. Tiffany reached into her purse, fumbling for her phone. The female agent stepped in, quietly and firmly taking the phone from her hand. You won't be needing that right now. Wait, Tiffany said, eyes wide now. I didn't know it was illegal. He said she was okay with it. He said it was fine. She turned on Jasper so fast it was cinematic. You told me she signed it. You told me she wanted us to have the house. His mouth opened, then closed. His jaw flexed. You were in on this too, the agent said calmly. We have text records. Your browser history includes searches for how to forge mortgage documents and military spouse financial loopholes. Tiffany's hands trembled as the agent pulled out a second folder. You posed as Dr. Everett's sister. Claimed she was video conferencing with you to tour the property. You forged her initials on an occupancy affidavit. I didn't forge anything, she shouted. He said it was already signed. Jasper stood up then, fists clenched. You're seriously going to believe her over me? She hasn't even been here. She's too busy playing war hero in some jungle to care about what happens here. My hands clenched. My throat burned. There it was. The truth. The resentment he never had the courage to say to my face. The inferiority he wrapped in lies and turned into a justification for theft. Then came the final blow. Agent Martinez, the woman leading the operation, stepped forward. We have verified that Dr. Sloan Everett never signed any documents related to this transaction. She is not listed as a co-purchaser. Her deployment status was misrepresented, and her protected military income was used without consent. She paused. As of now, both of you are under investigation for federal wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes against a deployed service member. Jasper opened his mouth to protest again. But that's when they cuffed him. The moment his wrists clicked into those silver bracelets, I felt something settle inside me. Not joy. Not triumph. Just clarity. Back in the comms room, Ava turned to me. You okay? I nodded slowly. I needed to see it. All of it. The house. The lie. The fall. She studied me for a moment. You know this is just the start, right? Yes, I said. But now he knows something too. Ava tilted her head. What's that? I looked at the frozen image of Jasper being let out the door. Deflated. Exposed. Caught. That I'm not the one who breaks under pressure. 2 hours after Jasper and Tiffany were taken into custody, I sat in the evidence room of the federal complex, staring at a growing mountain of paper. Bank records. Credit card applications. Real estate disclosures. Text message threads. Photos. Each one chipped away at the man I thought I'd married. But what chilled me to the bone wasn't what he had done. It was what he'd helped her do. Detective Ava Marin returned, laptop under one arm and her expression unreadable. She didn't sit down right away. Sloan, she said. We executed a search warrant on their apartment in Austin. I nodded. My pulse quickened. She placed a single sheet of paper in front of me, a printed email thread between Jasper and Tiffany. The subject line was, Target number 4, deployment confirmed. I stared at it. She was cataloging people, Ava said quietly. You weren't the first. You weren't even the second. What does that mean? It means this wasn't about your marriage. Or even your money. This was a system. A method. She built an entire fraud scheme targeting military spouses. She opened her laptop and turned the screen toward me. On it, a digital folder structure, each one labeled by name. Dr. Sloan Everett, Captain L. Morales, Lieutenant Rachel Stetson, Major Helena Price. All women. All military. All high income. She picked women who were deployed or overseas, Ava continued. Specifically officers in high-demand roles. Trauma surgeons, logistics officers, aviation analysts. All of them were sending money home. All of them were too busy or too far to notice someone bleeding them dry. My mouth went dry. She used Jasper to gain access, Ava said. But she was the brain. She researched your deployments. She pulled copies of public property records, marriage certificates, and social media connections. Everything was curated. She planned it all, I whispered. She built the playbook. Ava brought up screenshots of Tiffany's Instagram, the one I'd seen in passing but never really studied. An account with 32,000 followers. Username at TiffFitOfficial. Bio wife. Manifestation queen. A lover of clean energy and clean credit. I scanned the photos. Tiffany on the beach, holding a wine glass. Tiffany on a yacht. Tiffany in front of her house with the caption, "When your man knows how to treat you right, #manifesto." She documented her crimes like they were Pinterest projects, Ava said. Every vacation. Every purchase. Every lie posted, geotagged, timestamped. How is someone like her even real? I asked. She's not, Ava replied. That's the kicker. Her name isn't Tiffany. It's Andrea Lee Rodriguez. She's been using fake identities for at least 6 years. We're finding aliases in 3 different states. And she has open warrants in 2 of them. Romance scams, financial fraud, even elder exploitation. I felt the room tilt. My husband hadn't just cheated on me. He had helped a professional con artist build her empire, using my life as the foundation. Agent Ayers stepped into the room holding a thick folder. He dropped it onto the desk in front of me. More good news, he said grimly. She used your social security number to open 3 credit cards you didn't authorize. Current total balance, $41,200. I couldn't even speak. My chest tightened. She listed herself as your business manager, he added, and even submitted a fake tax document to verify her income. Calloway entered behind him. It gets worse, she said, flipping through another report. She filed for a small business loan using Everett Creative Holdings as collateral, which means she also faked your signature on federal loan paperwork. Ava looked up. You're looking at federal wire fraud, identity theft, false loan declarations, and multi-state conspiracy charges. I felt like I was underwater, like I couldn't get enough air. She was going to bleed me out entirely, I murmured. She already tried, Ayers said. And she was going to leave Jasper behind too. Her last text to a burner number we found was a flight itinerary. One way. Turks and Caicos. 2 weeks from now. No return ticket. Silence settled over the room for a moment. Then I asked, what about the others? Ava's expression softened. We've begun contacting them. Lieutenant Morales had $28,000 stolen from her over 8 months. She thought her husband was paying down their mortgage. Instead, Tiffany used the money to buy herself a Rolex and fund a weekend in Napa. Stetson's story is worse, Ayers added. She's still deployed overseas and didn't even know she'd been robbed until we found her name in the recovered files. She lost her entire deployment bonus. I felt a surge of rage so sharp I nearly doubled over with it. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about all of us. Every woman who gave everything she had in service and came home to find nothing left. Ava closed the laptop gently. We'll get it back, she said. Every penny. Restitution, penalties, interest. She left a paper trail so bold it might as well be a road map. And Jasper? I asked. Calloway didn't flinch. He's already trying to cut a deal. I raised an eyebrow. Of course he is. He claims he didn't know the documents were fake. That she manipulated him. That he was just following her lead. I let out a bitter laugh. The man who bragged about draining my money to impress her now wants to play the victim? He wants to trade information, Ayers said. Says he can give us names, texts, passwords. And you believe him? Ava paused. Let's put it this way. We don't need him. But watching him beg? That part is satisfying. I looked down at the paperwork again, the lies, the theft, the calculated cruelty. And I felt something shift in me. Not fear. Not grief. Resolve. She didn't expect me to fight back, I said. No, Ava agreed. But now? Thanks to you, we have a case that's going to shut down a multi-state fraud ring. I stood, my hands steady for the first time in days. She tried to erase my life. Calloway nodded. She just made you the one person who could destroy hers. 3 weeks later, I received a phone call I hadn't dared to hope for. Dr. Everett? This is Special Agent James Cole, U.S. District Attorney's Office. We're ready to move forward with formal charges. The arraignment is tomorrow morning. You may want to tune in. I stared at the receiver, heart suddenly pounding. Arraignment. Courtroom. Official records. No more secrets. The government was ready. And for the first time in months, so was I. The hearing was held in the federal courthouse in Austin, in a glass-paneled courtroom that looked more like a corporate boardroom than the place where lives are split open. I watched via a secure stream, patched into the government line as a protected victim. Picture was high definition, but the emotions were even sharper. Jasper entered the room first. Wearing the same gray suit he wore when we eloped in Portland 5 years ago. Only now it hung loose on his frame. His face was hollow, eyes darting. Behind him, Tiffany, or rather Andrea Rodriguez, dressed down in court-mandated attire, hair pulled back, makeup gone, her Instagram sparkle completely erased. The judge entered. The room stood. And then, just like that, the hearing began. The federal prosecutor was surgical, methodical, lethal in the way only a well-prepared woman with facts on her side can be. She laid out the full scope of the crime. Over $93,000 stolen from me directly. Additional $126,000 across 3 other verified victims. Forged documents, including military verification letters, bank statements, and power of attorney forms. Evidence of intent to flee, including Andrea's flight reservations, multiple burner phones, and deleted communications. Jasper's confessions via text, recorded messages bragging about the loophole, and his email titled, "She's too far away to fight back." Courtroom stayed silent through it all. Even Jasper. Then came the moment I didn't expect. The judge asked if the defendants had anything to say. Jasper stood. Hands shaking. "Your Honor, I never meant to hurt Sloane. I didn't know Tiffany, Andrea, was doing all this. She said it was legal. That we were just accessing what was already mine. I made mistakes. I got scared. I felt like I didn't matter anymore." He looked toward the camera directly at the screen. "Sloane, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I was angry. I was jealous. And I thought if I could just have something of my own, I wouldn't feel so small." I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. Because I had waited so long to hear those words. And now that I did, they meant absolutely nothing. Andrea spoke next. She tried to cry. It wasn't convincing. "I was manipulated too," she said. "I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't even know the money came from deployed accounts until they told me after the arrest. I was just part of something I didn't understand." Prosecutor interrupted. "We have text messages where you described military wives as ATM machines and uniforms." Would you like us to read them aloud? Andrea went quiet. For the first time, the mask cracked, and I saw not regret, but fear. The judge reviewed the sentencing recommendations. Jasper, plea deal for 4 years federal prison, 5 years probation, full restitution to me with penalties and interest. Andrea, 7 years without early release, additional financial penalties for each identified victim, federal charges in 2 other states pending. As the sentences were read, I felt a weight dissolve in my chest. Not because it fixed everything. Not because the numbers balanced out. But because it was finally real. Documented. Stamped. Recorded. He didn't just break my trust. He broke the law. Later that day, Calloway called me from her office. Want the good news or the better news? I smiled for the first time in weeks. Surprise me. Restitution is already processing. You'll receive the first transfer within 72 hours. Full recovery, plus $18,400 in penalties. And the better news? The house sale was nullified. Since the purchase was based on forged documents and stolen funds, the title is reverting to the original owners. You're not liable for a single cent, and the escrow is coming straight back to you. I sat in silence for a moment, then whispered, "It's really over?" Calloway chuckled softly. "It's not over. It's just not yours to carry anymore." That night, I stood alone in my apartment, barefoot, holding the restitution letter in my hands. The numbers didn't matter. What mattered was the silence. It was clean. It was safe. It was mine. My phone buzzed. One new message. Blocked number. I don't blame you. You had to do what you had to do. I hope one day you'll forgive me. Jay. I stared at the screen. My hands didn't even shake. Then I deleted it. No reply. No drama. No forgiveness. Just freedom. 3 weeks after the sentencing, I stood in front of my deployment countdown calendar, the one I'd taped to the inside of my medicine locker 6 months ago. There were only 2 days left. 2 more dawns. And then home. Only now, home wasn't a place I was going back to. It was something I was about to build from scratch. The final restitution deposit had arrived the day before. Every dollar recovered. Every fake account shut down. Credit reports corrected. My name cleared. The relief wasn't loud. Didn't come with champagne or music swelling in the background. It was quiet. Like an exhale that had been trapped for far too long. I scheduled a final video call with Captain Calloway that evening. We hadn't spoken since the official case closure, but she'd promised to update me on the fallout from Tiffany's, no Andrea's arrest. Call connected. Her face appeared, lit by late afternoon sun through half-closed blinds. "You look like someone who just turned in her last final." I grinned. "I feel like someone who passed an exam she never signed up for." Calloway leaned back in her chair. "You'll be happy to know the last victim from the fraud ring got her funds returned yesterday. Helena Price. Nearly $38,000. All accounted for." She cried on the phone. I felt my throat tighten. "That makes 4 of us. Actually, 5. One more came forward after seeing the press release. A reservist in Arizona. She hadn't even realized what happened until she saw the names." I shook my head. "They never would have stopped, would they?" "No," she said. "But you did." Then Calloway's expression shifted. "Jasper sent something through his attorney." I tensed. "A letter. Paper. Not email." "Let me guess," I said. "He found God. Wants redemption." She smiled faintly. "He says he understands now. That what he did was rooted in fear. That he was never trying to hurt you, he was trying to matter to someone." I was quiet. He asked if you'd be willing to respond. Not to take him back. just to acknowledge that he existed. I stared at the screen for a moment, then said, "Tell him I wish him the peace he couldn't live with when he had it." Calloway didn't react for a long beat. Then she nodded. "That's better than he deserves." That night, I walked out onto the roof of our deployment quarters. The sky was clear, quiet. The stars looked sharp and endless. And for the first time in months, I wasn't replaying messages or signatures or courtrooms in my head. I was thinking about the lake house. Not the one Jasper tried to steal. The one I'm still going to buy. Someday. With my own name on the deed. No forged signatures. No borrowed dreams. Just mine. Sometimes people ask me if I regret marrying him. I don't. Because without him, I wouldn't have known what I'm capable of. I wouldn't have met Captain Calloway. Or Ava Marin. Or seen what justice really looks like from the inside. I wouldn't have helped those other women. Wouldn't have learned that strength isn't just about endurance. It's about knowing when to stop holding what's breaking you, and when to rebuild with nothing but your own hands. When I packed my duffel to leave deployment, I found something I hadn't touched in months. An old photo of us. Jasper and me. Before. We were smiling. He looked proud. And I looked smaller. Like someone trying to make herself take up less space so he wouldn't feel small next to her. I slid the photo into the trash. Not with anger, but with the kind of peace that leaves no ashes behind. As I boarded the flight home, I realized something simple but powerful. I didn't get revenge. I got clarity. I got my name back. I got my future back. And this time, I'm not sharing the pen with anyone.